I think it was Dick, myself, and Bob Siebel on the phone. So just the three of us. But
I was on the phone.
Who is that? Steve?
Yes, I'm trying to. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on for a couple of minutes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear you before.
Yeah.
Being in.
I keep turning up the volume here on my thing.
Okay. Well, I was just giving Alexis a brief rundown that we thought it went really well, and that we thought that he's the right man for the job. But I guess we'll talk about that when the others get on here.
Okay, sounds good.
I think Jennifer is calling in. Doug is not going to be able to make it, and Bob was kind of on the fence yesterday. He wasn't 100% sure whether he was going to be able to call in or not. So I think we'll just wait a couple more minutes for Jennifer to see if she calls in here.
So Kelly, is Dawn there with you in your office?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are we being recorded this week again?
Yes.
Okay.
Mona is here.
Okay, all right. Just thought I would check. So.
Yeah, no, that's good. She mentioned that.
Did Dick happen to mention, are we able, is he going to have resources from within his entire firm, or would this be him as a lone wolf, or how does that work for him?
Well, he would have the resources of his entire firm. As Kelly has suggested, if we get Jennifer on the phone here in a few minutes, I think we'll go over the high points, and that way we won't have to repeat ourselves. But yes, he brings the resources of his firm with him, and that includes a person in Wichita who specializes in the chow or change of ownership process. They also have a government affairs lawyer right there in Topeka. They're across the street from KDAD's. They're in the same building as bring a lot to the table.
On a side note, I got to meet Eric this week.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, he is now, he and his firm are now doing the accounting side of the Kansas Association of Counties financial stuff. So he was there, and I did get a chance to talk with him in person, and we just kind of talked about the letter that he sent, that he forwarded to us.
Right. Good.
I do think that his personal preference is that we try not to commingle the operations.
That's absolutely correct. I want to do the operations, neither does my board. So I think that was the point of the letter, is that the severe and deleterious financial impact upon the hospital to commingle the operations. We have to do arm's length transactions via contracts.
We're going to wait just a couple more seconds just to see if Jennifer calls in here.
I'm fine with that.
Dawn just sent her a text, so if she lets us know, then we can get started. Or
actually talked with another commissioner who said that they have had to change out the laundry chute in their nursing home facility about 6 times. And that's because every fire marshal that comes demands a new type of material to use.
Yes, that's...
So, I mean, it's ridiculous, really.
And they just, we were cited for having lint on one of the sprinkler heads.
Oh, my word.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the conversation, is how cumbersome some of the regulations have become. And I'd like to know who has the time to sit down and word by word you come up with some of these things. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, that's what we have when we have too big of a state government, too big of a federal government.
Jennifer.
People look
Agreed. I agree.
things to do, and most of them annoy normal people.
Agreed.
Jennifer, I think I heard you come on the line.
Yes.
All right. We've got then you, Steve, Alexis, myself, and Dawn on the phone here. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. And Mona is here also recording the meeting. So with that, I guess we can go ahead and get started. Steve, do you want to kind of give a rundown of the conference call with Dick Hay yesterday?
Yes, after some initial difficulties, I mistyped Dick a little after 10 o'clock. We had about not quite a 30-minute telephone call to kind of review in general what we're looking for and what they have to offer. As I was discussing with Alexis just a few minutes ago, Olson Siefken would be the largest law firm in the state of Kansas, and they have quite a bit of people in their healthcare division. In talking with Dick, he's worked in this environment before, as has his firm. They have a dedicated person in their Wichita office who would handle the complete change of ownership, or what's referred to as the chow process. He thinks that, let me continue to review the assets they bring to the table. In their Topeka office, they have a government affairs attorney. His job is to maintain contact with the various and sundry state agencies. They are right across the street from KDADS. They have they're on a first-name basis with the head of KDADS and several other organizations, so they know Mr. Keck quite well, and they're able to work with them. One of the caveats is, of course, with the election coming up here in a little over 2 weeks, a lot of the leadership at these organizations may change in the not-too-distant future, but it's their job to stay up with that, and they do it on behalf of themselves and a lot of their clients. Speaking with Dick about several of the things that are going on here, I think he brings a lot of expertise in and of himself to the table. His basic recommendation at this point for us going forward is to nail down an NDA, or non-disclosure agreement, with John Grace, so that we can keep all of this, or as much as possible of the actual details of what we're negotiating, confidential and between the parties as we're going forward with this. That was something I hadn't thought of, but then again, I think that's why we're looking for a law firm to help handle this.
Are we talking, if I may ask a question, are we talking about an NDA to protect John Grace's financials, or the negotiations that are happening?
Both ends, Alexis. It's both ends. It applies to both parties, a non-disclosure agreement, and protects a lot of And I think, as we had discussed last week, and we discussed this with Dick yesterday, getting audited financials is going to be difficult. So he recommends he and Eric Potting office in the same building. They're on, I think Eric's firm is one floor above Dick's. They already know each other and have worked together, and he thinks that Wendling No, that firm, would be a great firm to do the forensic audit. As we discussed last week, I think they can go in and test a lot of things and make these, and I think make the process a little more peaceful and for going forward. So I think that's a good idea. But
is anyone in either of those groups acquainted with John Grace?
Yes. Dick's aware of him, knows who he is, has heard of him, has not dealt with him directly, but knows of him. The same with Eric. Eric knows of him. I don't know that they've done any work for him directly. So, yes, they're aware of that. Again, they come into this with representing us, but without any personal axes drawn. And so I think that's a good thing. If we go ahead and retain them, and I think the next step in all of this is to decide on retaining them, both firms, and have from them letters of engagement which spell out their responsibilities and duties and things of that nature, and also give us a budget to work from. So I think, Kelly, unless you have something to add, I think that fairly sums up our general discussions from yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much else to add. In terms of him knowing John Grace, when we mentioned that he was head up leading age for a number of years, that's when it kind of triggered, I have heard of him before. But one of Dick's questions to us in terms of his, what other facilities does he own? So we kind of gave a little bit of background on our knowledge on that. But no, he doesn't have any previous working experience with them.
Was there any comment about the lease or the current situation? Because it sounds like maybe the focus is on this child paperwork, but we haven't really analyzed, and that's kind of what we needed the attorney for, what are our boundaries within the parameters of the current situation?
Well, we didn't go into the details per se. What Dick was looking at, first of all, was getting, we need to engage them, a letter of engagement. His first thing was a non-disclosure agreement before we go into the actual negotiations, and he agreed that we need to bring in an accounting firm, and he knows Eric Otting, that we would go in with that. I think the rest, shoveling the rest of the details at them would be the next step. But I think they understand what the county commission wants to do, and they can assist with the 501c3 and all of that. And part of this, again, is, if you go back to it, they want to do kind of a discovery process where they go in and look at all of that. I think getting those details on the table will be part of the entire process. Dick's recommendation with the change of ownership process, as well as the NDA, those are the first two things. Get that underway because of the time it takes to get the child through the state bureaucracy. That needs to be one of the things we're working on now. And then we go to the table once we've done, once he's had a chance to look at those things, release some of the other things that have gone on, and as well as to do the accounting, we've got to basically make sure we know what we're paying for, and not take John Grace's word for it, but actually get Dick and his people, Eric and his people into the mix of this, make sure that the things that Grace is offering up and the way that he's pricing it is fair and honest.
And I will say that after my conversation with Eric Otting, I do think he completely understands that the proposed value of what John Grace is putting forth as purchasable doesn't jive with the numbers he presented to the commission as far as his plea for help because he's in debt.
Well, right, and that's why, I think we all agree, Commissioner Fluke, that going forward we need outside experts such as Dick and Eric to assist us in this, and I don't think it's anything from our end, but yeah, if I were John Grace, I'd be putting up, it's a deal. It's a deal, and he's going to put up what he wants, and what we need to do in our due diligence is to examine all that. I don't think any of us on the working group have the wherewithal and the tools to do that, which is why we need to bring in firms that are already familiar with these kinds of processes, and that's, Polston, Seaton, and Wendling No Nelson, so the accountants and the lawyers.
Did Dick propose a retainer fee amount?
We did not discuss that. I think what we have to do is visit with them to look at what we want done, and then they'll propose something, and we'll go from there. I think that's the way it works with our auditor as well. We get a proposal from them every year about what our audit's going to cost, what's included in that. So I think the letter of engagement would outline all of that, what the retainer would look like, et cetera, et cetera. That's my understanding of how business is done in these kinds of circumstances, that they would give us, for XYZ dollars, you get QRS things. And then that letter of engagement can also be negotiated. So that would be my understanding on for both the accountants and the lawyers.
Okay, I think we need a motion, then I move to propose acceptance of a letter of engagement to both firms. Is it Wendell?
Well, the accounting firm is Wendling. N-O-E. Wendling is W-E-N-D-L-I-N-G. Noe is N-O-E, and Nelson is the common N-E-L-S-O-N. I may have their stationery in front of me. I'm doing that from memory. Let me see if I can find a piece.
John, would you mind to jot that down on paper?
Say that again?
John, would you mind writing that down on paper for us, please?
Writing what down? The I move.
The motion?
We've got the letterhead somewhere.
Yes, the motion.
Yeah. It's Wendling No Nelson and Johnson, LLC. And it's just from their letterhead, Wendling No Nelson Johnson, LLC, Certified Public Accountants. And then the law firm, let me see if I can look this up very quickly. The law firm, the lawyer we want is Charles Hay, Hay. Folston Siefken LLP. So Folston is Foulston. Siefken is Siefkin LLP. So those would be as close as I can get to the formal names of both organizations.
Jennifer, do you have any comments on anything?
I don't have any objection to either one of those. I think they would be great, and I think they would offer us some really good advice that we're desperately needing.
One other thing that we discussed on the phone was just in terms of the license, and it seems like a lot of our discussions just comes down to the license and the facility. Whether we have to have Grace's license or if we can start on their own. And Dick Hay did have some thoughts on that, but I think it gets down to.
Kelly, if I may just redirect here for one moment, I think we need a second and a vote to make it official. That way we can at least say that the committee has made a decision, and please voice your opinion if you're opposed, but I'm going to ask for a second.
I'll second the motion.
And then any further discussion about choosing these two particular firms for legal representation and an auditor. If nothing further, then all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries, and if we could please just have that on record. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kelly, but go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say there was some conversation about that, but kind of like what Steve was saying, I think he didn't have any specific recommendation he just needs to dig into it a little bit more, but he kind of understands our position on that.
Have you ever heard of a situation like this?
Well, we didn't get that specific, but he's familiar with it. I don't know that he has, but his firm has, because as we were discussing all the primary objectives, part of the decision to do due diligence is what's been recommended is the change of ownership, which takes care of the license, but we're also looking at the Medicaid number. And he agreed with us that both of those were important, but he said we really needed to do due diligence, especially on the Medicaid number, to see if there's anything hanging out there. And I think we've been warned about that before in the first couple of meetings we had. Bob Siegel brought up those particular items, that's where any liability would reside. So going forward, as we are with Folston Siefken and Wendling No, that will be their job. We'll have somebody who can actually do the due diligence on that. So yes, they've done it as a firm. Has he done it specifically? He has some experience with it, but that's why they have the experts in other offices there as well.
So do we want to appoint one particular person to get in contact with them, request the letters of engagement, and then I guess we'll need a signature. Maybe our own county attorney should be the signature on that. Maybe they can work through her office to send those particular legal documents.
Well, I volunteered yesterday. I know I've never learned that lesson when I was in the service, not to volunteer for anything, but I volunteered yesterday. I can coordinate that with both of these firms, and so if we're going to move these items through Jennifer, then she and I will I'll coordinate with her as well as with Dick and Eric.
No problem. Whatever's convenient for everyone.
Thank you.
That's just my suggestion. For any other office, I think it's probably best recorded and maintained within one of the county offices. So that's all I'm saying, Steve. I'd be glad to have you be the contact person, but I think we need the actual physical documentation in the county ownership.
Well, yes, I think all of this is for, Lincoln County. I can't disagree with that, Commissioner Flug. I think you're correct. It's the county. We're a subset. We're working for the county commission, and they're the ones who are going to have to sign off on and fund this. So I think you're absolutely correct about that. I just had volunteered to do some of the legwork or the phone work.
No, I appreciate that. I guess I would like to shift paradigms a little bit. I'm thinking that our committee needs to reach out, branch out, get a few other people on board, and we need to start making political contacts, because I think we can internally handle some of this legal stuff, and that's why we're hiring. But as far as people in the community are concerned and where we're going to go with this publicly, now if we're going to put everything under the cap of a non-disclosure and not say whether or not we're using your money to buy something from someone who owes us money, I think we need a little bit more PR. And my suggestion is we could beef up our committee with people who aren't committed to other things, such as ourselves, and ask them to start making these political contacts. I think our legislators need to know this legislation in and of itself poses problems not just for us, but I mean, look at the tangled web that we're dealing with, and that's not going to get any easier into the future. And people like John Grace, I'm sorry, if he sees this as an opportunity to basically hold hostage something that's critical for this market to be operating efficiently, I mean, that is definitely a political aspect that I would like to tackle, and I think that's not necessarily up to each one of us individually. I'd like to expand our push, in other words, add some people, find out if there's anyone in the community that's interested. In that process, we're also going to be trying to collect a board. And I think anyone that's really passionate about this issue would want to be involved with that. Does that make sense to anyone?
Well, I would like to comment just briefly, Commissioner Flug, that I think the general idea of making sure we keep this in front of the public is a good one. I think if we there's some rules of thumb about the sizes of groups that are involved in kind of decision-making and fact-finding things, that once you get beyond 7 or 8, the group becomes very, very unwieldy. I think you have a good idea that we need to be out in front of the public selling this, but perhaps, and I just offered this as an alternative, maybe doing a forum at the Finch Theater. If people are interested, I think they will show up for something like that. But I would offer that as an alternative and try to keep this group relatively small, but put on some public forums. If not at the Finch Theater, maybe at the basement of the assisted living facility where we've had meetings before. But I would just offer that as an alternative. Not only the Finch Theater here in Lincoln, also try to do something perhaps at Vesper, given the community building there, given its proximity to Sylvan Grove. We want to be sure and get those people in the process, and maybe something at the Lions Club in Barnard. Get out and reach out to the public in some of those kinds of venues where we're available to try and answer questions that the public might have. That would just be an alternative suggestion.
Well, no, I mean, I see that as a perfect extension. I'm not requesting more decision makers. I'm requesting more participatory action, as in when we have these public meetings, we can hand out letterhead templates that are already addressed and ready to go, and these people need to put their names on them, sending them to our representatives, saying this is the issue at hand. These people, in their offices, they do not like to receive phone calls and letters that are basically accusing them of not doing their job, and we're paying them for it. And at this point, there needs to be a heightened awareness of just the situational problems. I'm not saying it's finger pointing at a particular person in general, but when you have pages and pages and hundreds of documents related to, these Medicaid agreements and the statutory requirements for nursing homes, et cetera, and here we are, we can't even get a brand new license off the bat with a group of people who are willing to take on this challenge. That is just an upset in so many ways, and I think that's where the public can help provide the proper push to make the awareness spread.
I am just my thoughts for whatever it's worth. Would like to maybe see what Dick Hay proposes. I guess if he's got the governmental affairs liaison there that will be able to access, they might be able to direct us in terms of what we can do on a local level to help our cause and what we shouldn't do to maybe hinder our cause. I don't know. I guess I just kind of feel like maybe do we need to have Dick Hay kind of dig in a little bit and kind of sort out maybe here's what our options really are before we just start sending letters out to people. That's just kind of my thought is I think there's certainly a time for that, but it seems a little premature. I'd hate for us to cause ourselves some problems down the road because we've been sending letters and causing fusses and getting people in higher places that we're eventually going to need on our side mad at us. That's just my thought.
Well, I can tell you after spending the last 3 days with other government officials at the county level, as well as people who are inundated with the state bureaucracy, exactly what you just described, Kelly, that very mentality is what is hindering our local control.
I guess my thought is we need to talk to Mr. Hay and figure that out. I applaud the activism because I understand how frustrating it is across the board. I think we're all aware that the policies and the procedures and this mindset, is directly impacting our rural communities. I just don't want it to be premature, and I would just like Mr. Hay to be on board with us while we're doing it. That's my only concern.
Well, I don't think we can organize this kind of an effort overnight. If we're going to engage him and retain him, he should be at our disposal here relatively soon. And as far as him having advice on tactics, perfectly acceptable. His realm of dealing with the legal aspects, that's not going to change. Our legislators don't have any say on the status quo. What they have a say on is the future actual legislation. And just to bring awareness to the issue, you have to remember, we're also dealing with someone as a counterparty who's relying on their PR to get projects pushed through these certain entities. And the more we try to closet everything, the more power we give that opposing party. How would everyone feel here if we all realized that Cherry Village in Great Bend has already gone through a legal process costing them thousands and thousands of dollars to basically separate themselves from John Grace? Don't you think everyone would have maybe reconsidered the lease negotiations we did last year if that conversation had been taken more seriously when I brought it to the table?
Well, I can't say I was not involved in that. I think...
But that's what I'm saying, Steve. The reason why you didn't hear about it is because I come to the table, I said I spoke with an operation that spent thousands of dollars in legal fees to become here we are signing them on without doing a background check, without doing any kind of inspection of their financial history. And because that conversation was not taken any further than that point, here we are repeating history. It's already been done by other people who, unfortunately, in their circumstances, did not spread that word either.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, right now, that's water under the bridge. We are where we are right now. Now, moving forward, if we want to make people aware of the burdensomeness of the nursing home regulations, that calls for action at the federal level, because that's where all of that originates and is implemented down through state agencies like KDAD. The latest set of nursing home regulations all originated with CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, because they pay the bills, they can call the tune. They're passing the Medicaid money to the state to distribute. But yeah, I think we just have to deal with the hand we've been dealt. Perhaps we could have done better. Hindsight's always 20/20. But let's try to go forward in a collegial spirit, that we're all concerned about doing what's best for our entire community and unwind this as best we can so that it does serve the whole community and the people here.
That's exactly what I'm touching on. You couldn't have said it better. It's a forward momentum to spread real awareness, not just to come out to the public and say, oh, by the way, we used your money to purchase this out from under this particular situation, but that's water under the bridge. No, it means progressing in a forward movement and having faith in our communities that they are capable of understanding the situation as it progresses. Not just treating them as if they don't have the wherewithal to understand that there is some reality check that needs to be done as far as how we do business as a group and with public money.
Right. But let's go forward with this project. And yeah, I think if we want to talk about the particular project that we've got now and why we're doing that, I think public forums are a great place for that. Because what we are trying to do is preserve, 50 good-paying jobs in this community, a couple $1 million worth of payroll, and some things of that nature, as well as being able to put our elderly in a place where they are safe and secure, but still in the community that they want to be in. And
Absolutely.
None of us are perfect. Mistakes.
Well, I'm going to take the burden off of this committee, and I'm going to place the burden on the commission. I believe that on Monday I'm going to propose to the commission that they initiate these public meetings. They were the ones that did it the last time. I think it's their obligation.
Well, I think that's fine, and I think that, I'd be happy to participate in some of those.
That would be wonderful. I think we need to bring the committee in. But I'm just letting you know that politically, again, I'm not talking about the legal regards of dealing with all the internal paperwork. I'm talking about our lack of communication to the public, which has been brought up in our meetings, our commission meetings, and just the fear and the fear-mongering, the instability, all of that revolves around the decisions that we as a small group are contemplating. Someone needs to address that, and it's the elected officials that need to do it. But I would like for this committee to participate because we're the ones that are, gathering this type of information, and it would be great to have some sort of statistical analysis to provide based on whatever Eric Otting and his firm can conjure without audited financials. I think it also gives us time, if we make it be known that that's our intent, it gives us time the whole word of negotiation, as far as actually paying for something, that does not have to be rushed. And I think basically spreading out the knowledge is nothing more than a time advantage to our particular committee.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. But I think we need to be careful in these initial steps. And if we need to say something to the public, I think we need to do it in a unified fashion and go forward, because what we're trying to do, what we think is best for this community, and that's bring control of this whole operation back under the people of Lincoln County, which is the basic idea of the not-for-profit to operate this under the direction of a board that's appointed by our county commissioners. And that, we do, that takes care of a lot of things, including the politics of who's on the board, because my inclination, what I understand from the commission, is that they'll appoint the board to operate Lincoln Park Manor, much like they appoint the board here, and that's that each commissioner will have, up to 2 picks. It depends, it depends on how you want to set up your board. You need an odd number, a 5 or a 7, so however that choosing goes, but that the entire county at least be geographically represented. So I think that's just a good idea. And, the past is the past. Let's see what kind of future we can create.
Well, to shift that whole focus again, I think one of the other things we need to be doing, just like Bob Siegel had mentioned, we're not going to be able to rely on Joe and Betty and George to make these types of decisions for the nursing home. So we are going to be needing some sort of managerial contract. So I think we need to look at how to retain that, even if it's for a short term. If we do decide that we can hire someone who operates the entire facility, I'll just give you a brief explanation of what I found out from St. Luke's in Marion County. I did email everyone just a little brief bullet point of how they facilitate that, but the CEO of St. Luke's serves as the administrator of the hospital, and he also holds his administrative license for the nursing care. Now, under him, he has 2 people, one, I believe, called a director, and the other called a manager. So there's actually a 3-tiered layer of management for their skilled care and their long-term care / home health, that whole side of the operation, which is then grouped as a branch under the hospital's administration. So you still have the same board, but the actual management of the facility is happening within those layers of manager and director, and then the CEO is kind of just the overhead of that. He said he does not have a lot of daily intervention with how things are done in that particular realm, but ultimately it's just the structure that it's set up under. So what I'm getting at is, no matter who we have over top of this, be it the county-appointed board or just one particular administrator, that still doesn't bring to the table enough expertise to get things turned around, because I think we're dealing with a situation where someone needs to go in who has that kind of experience and do what needs to be done. That Cherry Village nursing home that I mentioned at Great Bend, it just changed hands, and what happened was the company that bought it, they sent in an interim administrator, and her particular job is to get things up and running in the fashion in which it would be running if they had already been taking care of that place. So she's implementing a lot of change, a lot of new policy and procedure type things that come down from corporate, so to speak, and that gets it running efficiently. In the meantime, they're advertising for a full-time position there because she has no intent on staying. She serves that company as an interim administrator and gets placed and plucked from time to time depending on their new acquisition. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, I think that's a good idea, and I think as we go forward with the people we've already agreed to help us with this, don't have access. I know Eric state audits and nursing homes and nursing home management places. I think as we discussed last week, we want to bring in, at this transfer, I think what we recommend to the county commission is they bring in all new blood at the top over there. And we bring in a management company for 6 to 8 months until the board of the new board of the new organization can find a nursing home administrator, someone with a license that they trust to actually operate the facility in an honest, forthright fashion. And so I think that's how we ought to proceed. And I think I mentioned this last week. Is that if we're going to get John Grace out of the operation, I think the whole top level of the management there needs to go, and that we bring in someone immediately. I don't want to do any kind of interim management agreement with the Grace folks.
Agreed. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And so, yes, I think we'll need some interim management. I think we can talk both with Dick and Eric about who they would recommend. Again, they're working in that more than we are, and I think we can depend on them to find us somebody trustworthy who will go in there and actually assist in getting us up and running on all of that.
And I do want to just make one more comment along those lines. We have to, I know everyone is afraid to talk about the past, okay, and I realize that. It's an emotional, psychological situation that humans in general have an issue with, but I'm going to say we should learn a very quick, fast, hard lesson from the Council on Aging. The Commission appointed a group of people to oversee nearly $100,000 every year. And with that money, they were trusting to employ one person. And in the end, that board had transitioned so many times in such a short time span that not barely one person on a board of 7 to 10 at any given time had a true idea of what their obligations were. So we want to avoid that same mistake, is what I'm getting at. You know, the transition, the turnover, the lack of knowledge that ended up happening there resulted in nothing more than the county as a whole funding one particular person's job. And what we don't want to see happen with the nursing home is creating a board where there is a high turnover and a lot of controversy and people who lack the ability to provide oversight to an employee. Because again, if we have that same scenario and we get a rogue employee who does what they wish there, who is going to make sure that those Medicaid reimbursement rates stay up, that the nursing staff is actually made accountable and or made available as far as giving their own assessments? One of the biggest complaints that I've heard from the employees of the nursing home, who we need, by the way, is the fact that they have had zero say in any of this. And they are the ones that are actually performing the daily tasks there. So that's just my little tidbit of warning as far as how we in the past have done things that have led to the ultimate demise of the scenario. I mean, right now in the LTCA, we have fewer board members. We've had a lot of resignations. They're shrinking the board, and the employees quit.
I would argue that I have an excellent board at this facility, and what it boils down to is the board, whoever we appoint, whoever gets appointed to the board of the reconstituted Lincoln Park Manor, they basically have one employee, and they do the performance evaluation on that one employee at every board meeting. And so I think that's the way it works. The responsibility devolves to the chief executive officer who works for the board, and they have to go from there. I think it's doable. That's how we operate here, and it just...
It is absolutely wonderful that you guys have had that much success, and you created financial stability. You've done your job well. The board has managed and worked together. I mean, that is a great achievement.
It can be done, and it can.
Absolutely, absolutely. My question is, if it's not working, who steps in? Because in the case of in the opposite case, we've had a decade of mismanagement on a different board. You see what I'm saying? Thank goodness it was $100,000 and not the $500,000 that we put into the hospital. You see what I'm saying? There's a difference there.
I understand, but the principle is the same. The responsibility ultimately results upward to the board. My board has a single employee, that is me, and I serve at their pleasure. And if they're not happy with what I'm doing, then I'm gone. And that's the way it needs to be with Lincoln Park Manor as well. You set some performance guidelines. You ask for certain things. If those aren't delivered upon, then you look for a new CEO. So, again, I think it's doable. I see it work in other places. It's finding the right mix of people, which is difficult. It's difficult to find board members here. We had an opening for a little over a year on our board until we found somebody who would step up to the process. It's not going to be easy, but...
I did have an interesting conversation. There was a particular county, I can't even remember who it was right now. I talked to some different people this week, but basically one county, I think for their hospital and for their nursing home, they have an elected board, like we do for the LCDF, and that was interesting to me.
Right. Sheridan County Health Complex, they elect their board members there. They have 7... Maybe that's
who I was speaking with then.
And they elect them. They run for election. So they have their different places do it different ways. I think the system here works well, and it just depends on the structure of the hospital and the county. But yes, it can be done in a variety of ways. But it's making sure everybody understands the lines of authority and responsibility, and if that can't be done, then you can have a lot of problems with the board as well as with an administration. Did everybody hang up?
Nope, I'm still here.
I'm on the
Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking. I don't think I have anything really to add to that discussion there.
Since we have the motion and I volunteered to do it, I will begin contacting Dick Hay and Eric Otting later today, and I will encourage them to work on some draft letters of engagement. You always get a draft, and I will get that draft out to the committee members to review as soon as I have them. So I will leave that as part of my to-do list, and we'll go forward from there. Does that sound okay to the committee?
That sounds good to me. I guess one question. Ultimately, I assume the county commission would need to sign off on those letters of engagement. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to coordinate all of this with Jennifer.
Okay.
And as Commissioner Flew rightly points out, yes, that should flow through Jennifer and up to county commission. I believe that's the appropriate adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Kelly, for your coordination efforts again.
Thank you, Commissioner Flew.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garza. Bye.
I guess our next meeting, we'll still just keep it at 9 a.m. next Friday. I'm sure we'll see a draft or something maybe before then, but I'll just assume that we're still on for this regular meeting schedule.
Yeah, I'll work on that. I'll work on those letters of engagement.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
You.
All right, thank you all. Have a great weekend. It should be nice.
All right, you too.